literally 4 years from when I began running to actually sign up for my first marathon.
What's up, guys? My name is Rob, and this is Rob on the Run podcast, a running podcast for all healthy lifestyles. And today, this is episode 22. We have Ramon here, a great guy. I've heard so many good things about him. Monstro Jose kind of put us in touch, and we've been talking for a little bit back and forth, trying to find a perfect time to get this recording. So before I start blabbing here, Ramon, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for asking. Doing
Awesome.
fantastic and glad to be here. So thank you for having me.
No, the pleasure's mine, man. Like I said, I've heard plenty of good things that you were a really good person to have in the podcast because you have such a plethora of experience running and whatnot. And um, definitely, I was, I expect that to hear a little bit about that, and I'm excited also to hear about your running journey. But as every single podcast starts, with me, we want to get to know a little bit about you. So tell us a little bit about you, Ramon.
My name is Ramon Rosales, and I am a junior, born and raised in Houston, Texas. I am a 1980s baby, so this year I will be turning 45.
Nice.
I am like I said, Houston native, so know the ins and outs of Houston, know every angle. So Houston is definitely my sweet spot, my bread and butter, and I just have a lot of passion for this town. But guess if going back into the activities part, I played football, I played basketball, and then of course always kind of maintain a pretty active lifestyle as well, leading up into of course running.
Awesome. And how did you transition basically from playing like contact sport like football and stuff like that to actually becoming a runner? How did that happen?
Yeah, so most of the activities came from the high school era, where of course we stayed busy and playing activities, and I didn't play anything after high school. Took a gap after high school, of course, but
Hmm.
still sustained my activities with playing basketball. And that was just out playing on a court somewhere and just playing ball for 3, 4 hours. I just never knew that it would have eventually transitioned later on in my life, but put a lot of time on my feet playing at the neighborhood basketball court.
Awesome. And at what age did you decide, or better question, how did you decide to start running? How did that start from playing basketball? Like where did that kind of align to what you were doing before?
Even in my early 20s, once, of course, I would stay busy playing basketball. I mean, we would be there 4 or 5 hours and just had an endurance, I guess,
Yeah.
from all the basketball playing.
Yeah.
Is basically where I think a lot of that came from.
Alrighty. And when and talking about the running part, what was your like first race? How did you get into the actual racing side of running?
Yeah, so I started my mountain biking is actually what I started doing as far
Okay.
as after the basketball, because of course the sport got faster and I got
Hmm.
slower, and so
Yeah.
eventually I just stopped playing. And then a friend of mine pretty much had he already had a mountain biked in the past and just things that he did, and this was a coworker of mine, and this happened in 2013.
Okay.
And so I was a little bit older, like 10 years went by. I got married, had kids, was basically a dad
Hmm.
for many, many years as far as that part of my life. And then, of course, once I got into my 30s is whenever he invited me to go mountain biking.
Hmm.
And we mountain biked for about almost 3 years. And by that third year, friends started getting hurt. The circle started getting smaller and smaller. We were no longer that big circle when we had first started, and I started running, and I wanted to keep busy. So in 2014 is when I actually laced up my tennis shoes and ran my first 5 miles.
Okay.
And yeah, that was the year I was 34 years old at that time.
Oh wow, 34. Okay.
Mhm.
I started a little bit later in life. I was running when I was younger. I used to like when I was a little kid, my brother played baseball. and he hated to run. When the first thing they would make him do is run around the baseball field, like all the way through the outfield and all the edges,
Oh, sure.
basically. And he hated to run. I remember him always telling his coach, "Oh, I can't run. I just had milk or something." He always
Yep.
had an excuse. He always had an
Yes.
excuse. But I would run with him, and then I would run with every single of his teammates that would start showing up little by little. So
Sure.
I definitely started running, I guess, at an early age, but never really did much with it. And five years ago, maybe six already, right about 5 or 6. I met my fiance. What now? There's my fiance, soon to be wife, and she invited me to the Minute Maid run.
Mm.
And you know, I probably ran maybe a mile or two on a treadmill just to, get the cardio going and then doing a little bit lifting weights. And so when she told me to go run, I was like, nah, I think I can do it. But I'm very competitive with myself. So I started asking friends that I knew that they would run races, and I asked them like how fast, what is a good time for a 5K? And they would tell me like 30 minutes. So then I had kind of like a goal, to run this race. And I mean, I just fell in love with it. I fell in love
Yeah.
with it. I fell in love with the medals. I think the medals was the one thing that I said, man, I get to run a
Mm.
race, and after the race, if I finish it, I get this amazing medal and a beer.
Yes.
Come on now.
That's right. Yeah. It's a
You
very
know,
rewarding feeling. It really,
yeah,
really is.
yeah,
And of course, yeah, the pretty medal, it's always a great little cherry on the top.
yeah, yeah.
And let's also highlight the shirts. A lot of the times you get some pretty
Yes,
cool gear as well.
yes,
So you
yes,
gotta
yes.
love a good race that definitely values the style that goes with the
And
event.
and and you're 100% right, because I love sporting out my races, my race shirts. I get a lot of compliments usually, like if you're in public or something and it's a big marathon race or something like that. They usually, people will stop by and say, "Oh, congratulations, you ran this marathon." I'm like, "Yeah," and then sometimes it turns into a conversation about running,
That's right.
which, my fiance already knows. Once you get me started, it will
That's
never
right.
stop. So yeah, definitely the race shirts deserve their love. I personally love wearing my, like, the big marathons. Like, I ran the New York City Marathon. I've run the
Wow.
Chicago Marathon. Berlin is the last major marathon I ran, and so I will sport it out like if it's like
Sure.
a brand new car.
Earned. Yeah, definitely. It's an earned shirt by
Yeah,
all
yeah.
means.
But yeah, it's
There's a lot of
crazy.
sweat, blood, and tears that goes with it,
Yeah,
and a lot of
yeah,
mental side of it. So yeah, you wear it confidently.
yeah.
And I'll make a quick joke. I told my wife, a friend of mine got married not too long ago, and I
Uh-huh.
like to wear my race shirts all the time. That just never goes away, and I'm 11 years into it.
Yeah,
I was like, "What are you gonna wear?" And I was like, "I'm just gonna put on my Houston Chevron finisher shirt and then just joke around because I just
yeah.
feel so comfortable in it. Just feel
Mm-hmm.
so."
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you spend so much time, like you said, training, and then leading up to the race. You gotta give it its justice. And
Right.
so and it's funny. A non-friend of mine once told me, I was wearing my New York City Marathon shirt, and he said, "How much does it cost you to run that race?" And I was like, "Well, New York City is a very expensive race
Yep.
because it's a major race." He's like, "Well, how much?" And I told him like about a little bit north of $300. And he stopped and he said, "So you're telling me that the shirt you're wearing cost you
It's
300
true.
bucks?"
That's very true. Yep,
I was
that's
like, "Yeah,
very true. I
yeah,
never thought about that way, but that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, yeah." And it did. And I thought about it too. And I was like, "You know what? Yeah, yeah, it did cost me 300 bucks."
You should calculate the hours of your training that went into that shirt as well, and just kind of just also have an answer to go along with the value.
Actually, you know
So
what? That's a good one. I'm gonna have to do that next time when someone asks me that. But yeah, going back to running. So 5 miles, you ran 5 miles. How
yes,
did that feel? And I'm pretty sure it felt great, because you already were running a lot from playing football and basketball and all that stuff. So how did that transition from you just running? I'm guessing it was just a like a regular run in the neighborhood or something like that.
yeah.
How did
So
that
with
transition to an actual race? Like, when was your first official race that you decided to do?
so in 2014 is when I first laced up my shoes. I went for a 5 mile run,
Hmm.
and being it that I had the bike turnover. 5 miles was a challenge, but I was able to figure it out because I understood the concept of a time on the bike of 30
Mm-hmm.
minutes or an hour. So
Mm-hmm.
I knew, okay, well, I can go run for 40 minutes. And so, yeah, first run was 5 miles. What's interesting about my first 5 mile run is I ran that about 8:30 in the morning. And then mentally I said, well, I got to make it hard to make it feel easy tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I went for two 5 mile runs on my very first run.
Oh,
One
wow.
first at 8:30 in the morning and one again at 5:30 in the afternoon. I was on
Okay.
vacation that week, so I took advantage of my time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, a 5 miler turned into a 10 miler. And so the very next day, I was super sore and I had all the regret and understood why people don't
Yeah.
like running. So I definitely went through that. But in 2014 is when I first began to run, excuse me. And
Mm-hmm.
I was blessed during that first year that I began to run. I lived really close to the Houston Byway, the trail system,
Okay.
and the trail system goes north, maybe 10 to 15 miles north, and now even
Mm-hmm.
further than that. So I stayed about a half a mile from the start of the trail. So
Mm-hmm.
in that time, I would jump on the trail and I would just, 30 minutes, go out 15, come back 15. And that went on for 1 year, 2 years. So from 2014 to 2018,
Mm-hmm.
I basically just dilly-dallied with just my little jogs here and there. And I will say that at the start of 2015, I remember seeing Chevron and 26.2 miles. And by that time, I was already running regularly. And I remember seeing the commercial and just looking at it saying, I don't need to sign up for that. That's for those guys. And so 2016 came again, and that was, like I said, running was already now my activity. I was running for an hour, 90 minutes here and there, and throughout the year. And then 2016 came again, and I saw the commercial, and I said, no, that's not for me. That's for those guys. So it took me literally 4 years from when I began running to actually sign up for my first marathon.
Oh,
So in
wow.
2018 was my first Chevron marathon, and by then I was turning 38. And I said, leading up to it, I was like, I've been looking at this commercial. Can I really do it? Am I just talking to myself? Am I just talking to the TV? And
Yeah.
so I signed up for it. I was like, okay, we're gonna go for it. And
Yeah.
you know, uh, that was my first actual major. I had already ran the Houston half as I was leading up to the training
Mm-hmm.
into the Chevron Marathon, but the Chevron Marathon in 2018 was my very first one.
That's awesome. And this is one of the reasons that I love uh doing this podcast because there's so many runners that I've had and they tell me, how they started and some of them go straight from running 3 miles to like a half marathon or between the gap between them starting to run to actually deciding to do a race,
Yes,
has is always very small. Some of them go straight from nothing to racing.
that's
And here
right.
we have you that you went so many years
That's right.
actively running,
That's right.
and saying, "Oh, that's for those guys," like you
Yeah,
said, and after so many years, you finally ran a race, which is so interesting. It's really really interesting again because of that. Most people, myself, I think I went like maybe 3 months, 4 months and then I got
wow.
into a race, and then of
Mhm.
course that just went from there. It's downhill from there. I
Sure,
raced as many races as I could,
sure.
but it's interesting that you say that and your journey, how it took from you just avidly running and whatnot, and just for the sake of understanding, what does it mean when you're saying those people? What are those people?
Well, I just, as far as running is concerned, running has really kind of helped me coming out of my bubble at the same
Hmm.
time. I've always been a very isolated individual, an introvert to the
Hmm.
max. I just always been to myself.
Okay.
So I think that, as I say, those people, meaning that people that want to commit to doing goals, and I didn't feel like I needed to live like that or
Yeah.
challenge myself like that. And it was just really, um, I was trying to break out of this behavior,
Hmm.
of settling,
Yeah.
of being okay with not challenging myself.
Yeah.
So I was just finding an excuse really to stop me from doing it. And it happened for 4 years. I did enjoy the activities of running, but I also was battling with my own ego at the
Yeah.
same time.
No, and it's funny that you say that, man, because before I got introduced into the actual world of racing through my fiance, I was one of those guys that would say, like, you're paying for a race? Like, isn't running for free?
That's
So I
right.
was one of those. I was one of those, but at the same time, it makes sense what you're saying because it's kind of like finding, like you said, finding an excuse to not do it, saying those people, and I get it. I totally get it because I was one of those people as well, you know. Um, and then once I did it, like I mentioned to you, it was downhill. I enjoyed it. I actually was able to challenge myself, which I was very against that. Like I was fine in
Yeah,
my, like you said, your bubble, my bubble as well. I was fine in my lane. I was fine working out 5 days a week, maybe getting
yeah,
on the treadmill for 30 minutes or 15 minutes just to get the cardio in. But I was okay. Like that was a challenge enough for me.
yeah.
And once I got introduced into running, I really realized that there's a lot more that I could do. And I
Right.
started with a 5K, and then I told myself, hmm, what if I do a 10K? And then I signed up for my first half marathon, which was scared out of my mind because 13 miles is an eternity to somebody that's only ran six. So, but little by little, I conquered that, and then I started thinking, marathon, is that something I can do? And that one took me a while. I'm not gonna lie, it took me a while to make a decision to do that, but you know it opened up my eyes to new challenges, you know,
Right.
new things that I couldn't do. Um, I also was very, very much of a, by myself kind of person. I spent a lot of time on my own. I would work out really early in the morning to avoid people. And for me, running was a big, big eye opener because the running community, they like to run alone, but they love to be around people, and for me, I was like, this is way too much. Like
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
too much for a person that just does not feel comfortable around meeting new people, and my fiance has a lot to do with now me being very sociable because she taught me how things are, how you
Yeah,
just have to put yourself out there, so I get you 100%, man. And I'm not gonna lie to you, sometimes I go back to that person sometimes,
sure,
but then I
sure.
remember, you've done this, you're
Yeah.
okay, just enjoy the people that are around you, so I hear you 100%,
Yeah.
and with that, but quick question. You mentioned 4 years running on your own. You never went to a running club or running group or anything like that. It was
No,
just still on your own.
still on my own. Like I said, I had that trailway system, and
Mm-hmm.
where I stayed was a little north of Houston.
Okay.
And if I calculate it correctly, it was roughly about 12 miles to
Hmm.
downtown if I were
Okay.
just to go south on it. So
Yeah.
every year I'd go 6 and then come back, which would give me 12. And then,
Hmm.
as I was growing, and it eventually got to 8. And then eventually it got to 12, and 12 was downtown Houston.
Yeah.
And so by the time I got back home, it was 24 miles. And by
Wow.
then I was like, well, I guess I'm ready for the Chevron Marathon is really what I told myself. Am I just talking to the screen? And the reason why I highlight that is because nowadays, when I get to kind of lightly guide the newer runners that are looking for those fast times or looking for those changes, I always bring up these 4 years. Those are my most favorite years because no different than any type of training, any
Yeah.
type of skill set that you have to learn, there is
Hmm.
work that has to be done.
Yeah.
And to me, those 4 years where I thought that I was kind of hiding in a sense, which
Hmm.
I was still working and developing the foundation of what running requires.
Yeah.
And so, with that being said, I tell runners it takes about 4 years before you start noticing the difference, and people don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
And that's I always like to highlight that because it's a very important part of my running.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah,
and it's funny that you say that because I think nowadays in the era that we live right now, a lot of the younger people want results now. So
Yes,
when you tell them something like that, that usually will kind of make them double think if that's what they want to do, like
that's
if
right.
they want to pick up running. I'm
100%
old
right.
school. If you were to tell me that, that just makes me want to do it more,
That's right.
because I like the work. It's funny. I'm not sure if I'm the only one or I'm a small percentage of the runners that love that. I love the training part aspect
Oh,
of leading up to a race. The race is awesome. I mean, I love the experience you get in a race, but I love all the work you put in to be
yes,
able to do these races, to be able to put lofty goals,
that's right.
that you want to do, a sub 3 or sub 4, whatever your goal is, and I feel like a lot of younger people, um, if you tell them that, if you tell them, hey, you probably have to train for 18 weeks for this marathon to be able to be ready to be in your optimal running conditions, whatever. Most people are like 18 weeks. I was
Yeah,
thinking of training maybe for a
that's
month,
right.
or something like
That's
that.
right.
So we are living in a very, very interesting time because, not to change the sport, but like even baseball, I'm a baseball purist to the max. And look at everything that they've done to baseball to make it faster,
Yeah.
to make it last less than what it would last before. Because the young crowds, they want to go watch a game in
Hmm.
2 hours and get out, you
Yep,
know.
that's right.
Versus
Hmm.
me, I love a long game. If the game goes 3 hours because it's a great pitching duel or because
Yes,
the batters take their time, you know, that's more baseball for me. I'm paying a lot of money, so I want to
that's
get every single minute that I
yeah.
can. But I feel again, it's so different, It's so different, that not a lot of people like to put time and effort into something like this. And that's why I think running in general is a very a goal oriented sport in a way. Unless you're just an avid runner, you're just doing it for to lose weight or just to be healthy. But for us, the runners that love the challenges, it's definitely has to be a very goal oriented sport. And 4 years, who would have known?
Yep.
Like now, looking yourself now at 45, you know
Yes,
and
that's right.
talking about, and I'm going to be 43, so we're just about
Oh,
the same age.
good. Good for you. Yes,
Um,
it's
um, talking about these 4 years now in all your experience that you have, did you ever think that you were setting, you know, your foundation, your base?
yeah.
Did you ever think that it was going to be such a big influence for you now?
So now when I run at that trailway system that
Hmm.
leads into Houston, it brings back so many memories. And so the most important thing being that all the work that I put in those areas, just back and forth, and just not knowing where this road was going to take me.
Hmm.
And Now, like I said, being born, raised, being connected with Houston so much, signing up now for the Houston Chevron. I mean, just all these little things that just help me connect now, even influencing runners, working with Houston local runners. It's just been just such a big impact. And I like to run on that ground because it just reminds me of all the hard work, just the dark nights, early mornings. And I like to recharge every, I don't know, 6 months. I find my way back there and just kind of reflect back on the memories so that if
Yeah.
I am feeling low, if I'm feeling like I haven't made a difference, those little small pockets. When I would ask myself, "What are you doing here, Ramon? Like, why are you out here? You can be at home right now. You can be with your family."
Yeah.
And now it definitely has paid off, and it is what basically prepared me leading up into that first Chevron marathon without even knowing. Um,
That
uh,
that's
once I
interesting.
So once I ran that first Chevron marathon,
Hmm.
first one ever, I had a lot of endurance already built up, four
Yeah.
years of basically planning,
Yeah.
and I was able to endure my first 26.2 and run it at a 3:07,
Wow.
which was qualifying time for Boston.
Wow.
It was just that caught my attention. You know, I look back at my pictures on the first Chevron, and I'm like, wrong shoes, wrong shorts, too much clothes. But I value it so much because
Yeah.
the one thing I wasn't missing is the drive
Yeah.
and the want and the desire to keep going forward. And yeah, I just really embraced that very first one because it hurt so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also had worked a lot of years leading up to that.
That's crazy. Tell me the time again. What was it?
307,
307. Wow.
307 on the first one.
That's and given the fact that this is your first official race, I know you were saying that you were running um for 4 years. How did you even know anything about Boston? Like that was an actual
Knew
race
nothing
that
of it.
you even could qualify, or did someone have to tell you, "Hey, you qualify for Boston"? Like, you
Somebody
know,
told me right after I ran that time, they're like, "You're by the way, you're going to Boston," and I had just made it by 3 minutes, I believe.
okay.
So I was like, okay. After as I looked into it and I started noticing that there's a little bit of a gap, a
Mm-hmm.
little cushion, the more faster you come in, the more cushion you give yourself to making it. And so the Woodlands Marathon was right around the corner. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm going to make sure that I'm in. And I ran the Woodlands Marathon at a 3:01. I
Wow.
think it was a 3:01 or a two, actually, it was 3:01, I believe is what I had. Yeah, 3:01 is what I ran it.
Wow.
So,
Wow. So
so I was
what
really
was it?
determined once I
Like about 3 months after, more or
That's
less?
right.
Wow. Wow.
Right away. Because I wanted to make sure that if that was true, I wanted to make sure I sealed my name into that hat to hear
That's
what everybody was talking about.
that is amazing. Like, man, it's one of those unique stories, man, because most people, when you talk about Boston, if you're a new runner, somewhere in your new running journey, let's put it that way, you find out about Boston. And like you said, you trained 4 years for that moment. You crushed it and you cross the finish line and they tell you, hey, you're going to Boston with you not even having 1 ounce of an idea that I'm guessing one, there was a Boston, two, you got to qualify, and then
Right.
3 months later, you actually improve your time by like almost what, 6 minutes, maybe
That's
seven
right.
minutes, and
That's
which,
right.
most people, you know, take sometimes it could take years just to shave off like a couple minutes, you
Yeah.
know? But again, that's it's I can only think that it's from those 4 years of all that,
That's definitely.
training, that
Yes.
you were able to do these big things,
That's right.
that patience that we were talking
That's right.
about, it's crazy, man. And congratulations. So did you went to Boston the next year basically, or that same year?
So it was the following year in 2019.
Okay.
So right after my Woodlands Marathon, I not only heard about Boston, but
Mm-hmm.
then I heard that there was a 50K, and I was like, well, what's this 50K they seem to be talking about? So a couple months later, I jumped into my very first 50K.
Wow.
And I mean, looking back at the pictures, I was a very green runner. I knew nothing. I had no water bottles. I knew about gels, but I didn't know how to take them properly. I didn't
Yeah.
know about the nutrition part and salt capsules. It was just like, there's a 50K. Here you can keep going. And so ran my first 50K, the Brazos Spin 50K in
Okay.
April of 2018, and ran a three hours and 58 minute 50K, which was once again, it was just like, I was like, okay, well, there's something here. And so little, races or the races with those times were just kind of leading me to believe that I have something I have a gift. I have something that
Yeah,
I'm sitting on, and I don't want to like not take advantage of this.
of course.
And especially like you and I know, you start going down the rabbit hole and you just want to know how much deeper the rabbit hole goes.
Yeah.
And so in my case, I just did it and just enjoyed to do it at a very fast pace. So,
Wow,
so
talk about being green and finishing it that fast, man. Oh my God. That's amazing. By the way, I am going to sign up. I haven't signed up, but I'm going to sign up for my first 50K, which is a very lofty goal because I decided to do the Habanero 100, which is not only a 50K, it's flat, so that's the best part about it, but it's probably on the hottest time in
Yes.
Texas. But
Right.
I want to do something that really is gonna put me to the ultimate test, you know?
Yes, 100%. And I believe that that's the best method. Make it hard so that way it somehow becomes easy.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I would encourage you to do that. To me, the 50K really helped me improve my marathon time
Okay.
because I started understanding that I was spending more time, and the less time I felt that I was spending, I kind of felt happier in a
Okay.
sense. So 50K definitely helped improve a lot of my marathon times.
Wow.
Uh, yeah. So once I ran my first 50K, I just
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, well now let's go check the marathon time, and then ran a Colorado marathon, and
Okay.
same thing. I was like, okay, now I'm in the mountains running at a fast rate, and it was just because I was not only running that 26, but that extra 5, 6 miles. It was
Yeah.
just to me was spark.
Wow.
And
And Colorado, do you remember your time for that one?
I believe it was Boston qualifier too. It was like a 3:07, I believe, something like that. It was
Wow.
really close to my Chevron time. Got
Wow.
me in.
This Flatlander from Houston goes
That's
to
right.
Colorado, which is all mountains
That's
and
right.
all
That's right.
elevation, and does
That's right.
the same. Wow, that's amazing. That's that, you know, and I always say this because I believe it's true. There's no scientific proof that I can say it's not or it is, but I feel that it's true because we're flat here in Houston, you know,
Mhm.
flat as a pancake.
Yeah.
But I feel that with the heat that we have to endure during the
Mhm.
summer and the high humidity, I feel like it's just like if you're training in hills, you know,
Yes.
because maybe you trade the hills for humidity, but still I think it builds up that endurance, you know, and maybe I'm wrong, you know, who knows,
No,
you
not
know.
at all. It's going back to that 4 years. I did a lot of Houston heat training, and
Hmm.
a lot of it surfaced when I needed it. So the time that you're putting in now, it does not go in vain. I promise you. Just keep building on that foundation.
Yeah, yeah, and reason why I do am very um, adamant about that is because I have a good friend of mine. He lives in Brownsville. His name is Art Hurtado, which is
Okay.
ultra runner. I'm not sure if you've heard of him. He's won like last year. He won 4 100 milers, you know,
Yeah.
overall, and he's I think even worse than us. I really do think that other than it being flat in the valley, it's a slightly more humid than Houston. And that boy can put
Sure.
some miles, man. And he
Yeah.
went to Arizona and he won the overall over there. And he said that it was in the like teens of elevation, you know. So we're talking about 15,000 feet of elevation or something like that. And for a guy from Brownsville, Texas, you know,
Yeah.
a small little, you know, town compared to, you know, Houston and big cities
Mhm.
up here, uh, you know, to do that, it's got to be, you know, all that heat training and, you know,
Definitely.
humidity that we get in here in South Texas and Houston, you know. But I'm looking forward, man. I'm looking forward to doing that Habanero 100. The most I've ran was the 26 miles, so definitely there's going to be a little bit extra
Yeah.
miles. But I I hate the cold. I will tell you right now, I hate the cold. I'm not enjoying this time right now.
Sure.
I love the heat. I love it being hot. I love it being 100 degrees and 90% humidity. So that I think has a big advantage for me to do this race, you know.
Yeah.
But I definitely need to learn how to train now from a marathon, which is a completely different way to now a 50K ultra. So I'm definitely leaning on some friends of mine, including Art, to help me out with maybe a plan or give me some insights on what to do. But yeah, that's that. I'm very excited to do it, and man, I'm still in shock that you hit those times in your first 50K, man. That's
You
crazy.
know, and really my suggestion to you is just to
Mm-hmm.
drop yourself into those races. You know, a lot of it, the uncertainty, that's completely normal, and that'll
Mm-hmm.
continue
Mm-hmm.
the new race that you will put yourself into.
Yeah.
So that just put yourself in the position, and you'll learn to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it.
No, and I went last year to help out a good friend of mine, Paco, for his first 50K there in Habanero, and the Colosseum runners were there, and I
Hmm.
think there was another group as well. And man, I fell in love with the unity that y'all have. Like y'all had two big tents,
Yeah.
plethora of food, water, drinks, everything you can think of. So every time one of the runners would show up, everything was ready for them, whatever they needed, So that really got me very interested in doing this race and getting into more of the ultra side. And funny thing, man, you're episode 22, and I think out of the 22 episodes, a good 75%, I kid you not, 75% of my guests have been ultra runners. So that just
Excellent.
shows you how
Yep.
much of an interest I've been
Yeah, good
having
for
with this,
you.
And every single person has such a great story, about it. And I'm looking forward to doing it for sure, man.
The harder the better, and
Hmm.
that kind of leads me into how I started branching into the ultra distances.
Okay.
Once I started figuring out that I had these fast paces and so forth, I also had the heat acclimation, and I was like, well, let's go give this heat acclimation a try.
Yeah.
And so Habanero 100K was my very first
Nice.
ultra uh, although pancake flat, but challenging
Hmm.
ultra.
Yeah.
And that one I ran it in 13 hours, and I came in first place overall in that one there.
Wow.
So same thing, just started discovering more about myself
Yeah.
by putting myself in those positions, not knowing that I was going to be even good and weather resistant. I did the right things. I didn't
Hmm.
just go out there and didn't just try something new. I did do all the necessity things. But I also enjoyed being out there. And if
Yeah.
you enjoy being out there, that's where you find yourself where you're going to excel the most.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I can tell you, I've been to some mountain races and it's beautiful, but sometimes they are very painful. And I feel like I sometimes enjoy habanero a little bit more. But
Yeah, no, and you're 100% right. If you're not enjoying it, then definitely you should reconsider if it's something that you want to do, because uh all these races, running in general, it should not feel like a job, And I always tell myself that like when I'm training for something, and if I ever get to a point where I'm saying I have to do it, you know, then there must be something wrong, You don't have to do it because there's no, it's not a job. It's not like your boss assigned you, hey, Ramon, go run a 100 miler, for
yep,
to get that bonus or something like that,
right.
You're doing it because you love it. So yeah, I agree with that. You have to be happy and enjoy the process, enjoy the ride, enjoy what you're doing, because if not, then it's like I said, it's going to be painful. So I agree, man. 100 miler, 13 hours. That's
It was
amazing.
100K,
100K. I'm sorry,
13K.
100K,
Yeah,
100K,
100K,
13
13
miler.
miler. Hmm.
Have you ever
But
done a full 100 miler?
Yeah, so shortly after that, I actually went into Bandera the very
Okay.
next year. Since I had tried this super hot race, I
Mm-hmm.
came in first place. I was like, okay, there's something here, and I'm just
Mm-hmm.
making things harder to hopefully make them easier. I said, well, let's go try Bandera out.
Okay.
And I did run it in 2020. But I had, once again, in those early years, I don't feel like I still knew the ultra terrain and running in high mountains and uh, the first day that I went to run Banderas, the first day I went there. I never went there to train, which was a very bad move on my behalf,
Yeah.
but I was just still learning. I was
Yeah.
learning how to run myself in the ground and then eventually say, okay, there has to be a better way than feeling like that.
Yeah.
So I ran Bandera in 2020. And then shortly after that one, I went into Rocky 50 miler. But once again, these two hard races led me, okay, I took this hot race and
Mm-hmm.
mentally it made me stronger because I knew anything that wasn't that hot was going to be easier. And then I went into this Bandera, which the elevation was crazy hard, but it was still, once again, challenging enough to make me not quit
Mm-hmm.
and stay with it and finish it. So when I ran the Rocky 50 miler uh, in February
Yeah.
of 2020, I got first place and
Oh
I ran it
wow.
in 7 hours,
Wow.
50 miles, 7 hours. And I was like, well, there's definitely something here. I was like, and I didn't want to stop at 50 milers, 100K. I was like, I got to keep seeing how far I can take this endurance.
Yeah.
And it all goes back to that 4 years. That foundation of those 4 years was so key. And it just kept popping up. All I had to do is just sprinkle in the training sessions here and there
Yeah.
as I was going longer and longer of the distances.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
That's crazy, man.
But that habanero made Bandera feel easier because it
mm-hmm.
wasn't as hot. And then both of those made Rocky easier just because got those two experiences,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
completely different terrains, and
And
it made
and
Rocky easy, just really,
and
really easy.
and when which one of these ultras that you've done ever since has been the most challenging one where you kind of were at a point where like, yeah, I'm ready to throw the white towel or something like that.
So in the earlier career, I was pretty fortunate to be able to finish most of the races. It was only till last year that I
Okay.
started experiencing some troubles with some humidity. I didn't train properly in
Mm-hmm.
the humidity. I had a bad race. I had a 60K last year in
Okay.
2024. Um, Felt good at the beginning, and it just kind of fell apart. But once again, talking about how much, even when you have these setbacks, how
Mm-hmm.
much they help you really kind of refocus.
Yeah.
It really does, because not all the races are going to go as planned.
Yeah.
Um, but for most of the first of my career of my ultra running, I did my best to finish most of the races without dropping.
You know, me hearing you talk about these races and all the successes that you had and the times that you put on these, I gotta admit it, Jose was right. You're definitely a very interesting individual when it comes to these these huge accomplishments that you had, man. When he was telling me about it, I was like, no way, like come on. You're hyping him up more than probably it is, but man, dude, I I I bow to you. This is it's mind blowing, man. It's honestly it's mind blowing to hear, you know, these accomplishments, man. The races that you've done, the times, the again a first marathon at 3:07. Like it's it's amazing, man. I don't know what other word I can use. It's just it's incredible that you've been able to do that. It's just mind-boggling, and kudos to you, man. You definitely put in the time and the patience, man. But it's definitely if Jose listens to this, uh, I owe you a kawama probably because of that.
And it's been fun. One thing I will say is that I fell in love with both. I fell in love with marathons and I fell
hmm
in love with ultra marathons. Of course, I preferred ultra marathons, but I
Okay.
still said, I'm going to do both.
Yeah.
So in those years, I still was not only perfecting my distances and trying to run far at a fast pace, but
hmm
then I was also running marathons and trying to run marathons at a fast pace. I was with the long distance running and doing the short distance running. I was able to make the The shorter felt easy
Yeah.
because my mind was able to wrap around. It's less time, less distance, a little bit less pain if you think about it. And it was
Mm-hmm.
all going back because of this endurance, longer run, 60 milers and so forth. So in April of 2020, let me see, 2021, I did my first backyard ultra. And
What's
so
that?
by then, it's where you run 4 hours, excuse me, 4 miles every hour at the top of every hour.
Oh, okay,
And
okay,
it just
okay.
keeps
Yeah.
going. It's the
Yeah, yeah.
backyard ultra.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, well, I got to get to my first 100 miles. And I felt that that was the best way to do it because if I was going to try any other way, I'm probably going to run myself in the ground. So
Yeah.
I would recommend that if you really want to dial in to trying to get to the furthest you can, backyard ultra is a good way because it
Okay.
kind of forces you to get back on that starting line at the next top, the top of the next hour.
Yeah.
So you got to have your food ready. You got to have, so it just kind of help you build a little bit more of a schedule.
Yeah.
And in 2021, I was like, okay, I got to at least claim my first 100 miler, and that's where
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do it. So I ran the Spectrum Backyard Ultra that the host in Columbus, Texas.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and we're pretty proud of that.
Yeah.
Finally getting to that 100-mile distance.
That's
Um,
awesome. That's awesome.
mhm,
Honestly, that's the first time I've ever heard of the backyard ultra. When you were saying the 4 hours or 4 miles every 4 hours or every hour, sorry, it
mhm.
reminded me of that David Goggins challenge
Yeah,
where you run
that's right.
basically the same thing, but for him, it's just 24 hours. So you run 4 miles every hour for 24 hours, you know. And when you said that, that's what I thought. But man, that's very interesting. So how long do these backyard ultras last since you're doing that for 100 miles? Or is it as long as you
As long as the
last?
last person,
Oh,
yeah,
last man
last,
standing kind of thing.
that
Okay,
last man
okay,
standing. Yep, yep,
okay,
that's right. And that's basically what it is. It's the last man standing.
okay.
They just call it the backyard ultra as well.
Okay, that's
But
awesome. That's awesome. And
yeah.
talking about the Houston Colosseum Academy and the Houston Colosseum runners, so you are more of a mentor to the runners. Tell me about how that worked out, or how did you end up getting into the Houston Colosseum, and or how'd you meet them and whatnot?
So in 2023, I met a gentleman by the name of Andres. I had
Hmm.
already knew a couple of the leaders through running. I'd see them running, or they'd pair us up in running. But I actually met Andres
Okay.
at a picnic
Okay.
that a run club was having, and we were just kind of exchanging informations, kind of our interest, and then we became pretty good friends. And he was like, "Hey, if you're ever interested, come hang out with us. We're on the southwest side of town. We'd love to have you."
Okay.
And so, of course, I believe a hamburger was promised or something like that at some point or another. But yeah, he got me to come out and just get to meet the team out there.
Okay.
Um, and there are a lot of Latinos
Hmm.
runners, and so being from Houston, wanting to share what I have pretty much gained as far as experience
Yeah.
since I started running, I thought it was a good opportunity for me to give back to the community as well, not only for that side of town, but overall Houston.
Yeah.
So I joined I joined forces with them as far as just coming and just guiding them on some areas. In my case, we created a track workouts on Tuesdays, where Christian was contemplating the idea. Daisy was also contemplating the idea, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Yeah, well, I'll back you guys up. I'd love to do it with you guys." And uh, taking the social club aspect and then just saying, "Okay, we're just gonna meet on Tuesdays also, but except we're going to work on Tuesday."
Yeah.
And it helped us to just kind of establish that little bit of training
Yeah.
along.
That's
So yeah,
awesome.
I it started helping in that area, and they saw the interest that I had for the community, and not only for that area, but once again for the running community. And
Hmm.
they asked me, "Hey, would be interested in just kind of helping out as much as possible." And I'm once again breaking out of this bubble, breaking out of this shell, trying to improve even and share my gift that I've been blessed with.
That's awesome.
It was a no-brainer.
And you mentioned Christian. What do you think about him? he amazes me in every single time he goes out and runs ultra or a marathon. What do you think about him and his
Yeah,
running journey, especially?
yeah, Christian's an amazing individual. I mean, personally, I've gotten to meet an amazing person. I can't tell you like his desire to just same thing like me, chase that rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like seeing a reflection. Christian has some really good influences that surround him,
Yeah.
and with that, you know, kind of friendship that surrounds you, there's no fear. And so with Christian, he is definitely very brave individual. He's
Mm-hmm.
been through a lot, and that has helped him, really callous his mind, and to be able to drop himself into these runs and these times that he's running.
Yeah,
I've been
no,
blessed to be
he's
able to take and just kind of same thing, just lightly guide and just help answer any questions that the guys may
mm-hmm.
have because it's a very unknown area as you start getting faster and
Mm-hmm.
start going longer, and I'm glad to be able to help them with that.
That's awesome. Yeah, Christian is an amazing runner. I met him through the first time I met him was through the Freaks. And then I started kind of following his journey and um f for the podcast side, he was my second guest
Hmm.
for the podcast, and I really got to know a little bit more about him, a little bit more about his running journey, and ever since I'm just blown away on what he does, and then he started doing the ultras as well, and I saw him there at Habanero, and he was just crushing it. He was crushing it. He did have like a stumble or something like that, which kind of took a little bit out of what he was doing, but man, he still did amazing, and
Yeah,
to see him bounce right back and do all these other races. It's funny because watching him through social media, he's a teacher. So when he's not working or he has those little breaks that teachers have, like spring break,
yeah,
he's out there putting crazy miles,
yeah,
like doing these crazy things. And I'm like, man, he's at it again, but it's such an he's such an inspiration, and being so young, it makes me, want to push myself even more, when I see that.
definitely.
Him and my friend Paco are one of the biggest reasons why I want to do habanero because I saw them do it. I saw them
Yeah,
struggle. I saw them, uh, you know, give it their all, that grit that they put, and I started thinking, not so much if he can do it, I can do it. It was more like, I know I can do it, man,
yeah,
because I know I have that in me. I know I have that grit to be able to push even when your mind is saying stop already, you know. So yeah, Christian is amazing, and what was it? What was it? Maybe I'm gonna say a month ago or a little bit less. I'm not honestly, I don't remember. I'm so bad with dates. I finally got to go to the Colosseum over there.
yeah.
Y'all were hosting with the Freaks a long run, and
Hmm.
I don't know if you were there. Um,
Yes.
I was the one that found a dog. I found
Okay.
a
Oh,
stray
yeah, that's
dog.
right. That's right. I do remember that on that back side of the. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
dog followed me for 4 miles back,
that's
and
right. Hmm.
but
It's a
the reason
pretty
why
dog too.
yeah, we ended up taking her to a very nice shelter because I love dogs. Unfortunately, I have one, so it was very hard for me to keep the dog. I tried to find somebody to take them if they wanted a dog or if they had a place, to house them. I remember the day after it was going to be super cold. We were
Hmm.
expecting very
That's
cold
right.
temperature. And so me and my fiance, we called a whole bunch of places and we found this place called Cap. I think it's Cap or Caps. I think it's Cap. And I mean, I was like an interrogator. I got off. I said, I have a stray dog. I can't take her home. As much as I would love to take her home, I'm already probably I'm gonna get my butt kicked by my fiance because I love dogs, and if I find a dog, I want to keep them. So I asked them, "What are you going to do with the dog? Are you guys a kill shelter?" All these questions, and they're a nonprofit. They take care of the dogs. They check that they get vaccinated, and then they find them a forever home, which goes through a really really big process. Just like if you're adopting a child, they actually make sure that the person doesn't have any type of criminal record, all these cool things. So I felt very good about leaving the dog. because I knew they were going to take care of her. If they would have told me, if they don't pick her up in a certain time, well, something's going to happen,
Yeah.
then I definitely would have not done that. But yeah, I was there. Sorry, I went on a tangent on that, something completely that has nothing to do. I went to the Colosseum Academy, and man, it's such a cool place, man.
Yeah.
You know,
And
and it
I was
brought
going
me
to highlight,
memories. Yeah,
and
go ahead.
in the leaders, there's a great group of
Hmm.
guys, honestly, and girls.
Yeah.
Each one are very selfless.
Hmm.
Everybody just throws in ideas, and
Yeah.
it just gels together. Like, and so it's a very encouraging me. It's encouraged me to kind of come out of my shell, really,
Yeah.
and kind of help collaborate, because
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing when everybody kind of puts when the egos go away and
Yeah.
everybody just sees the beauty of just enhancing something that's needed. I think
Yeah.
when I began running, there was a couple of Hispanic and Latino running clubs, and I was like, we definitely got to make sure that we keep that going, and to see
Yeah.
the Coliseum. And of course, there's all nationalities, but
Hmm.
primarily there's a lot of Latinos.
Yeah.
And it's good to kind of highlight that, because there's a bunch of us,
Yeah.
and uh, this group has really done a really good job in the last 2 years to really build uh, uh, yeah, that community.
It's funny, Ramon, because I used to live. So this is my second stint living in Houston. The first time it was around 2018, right after the hurricane hit Houston, like maybe a couple months after, and I was working for Panda Express as a assistant manager, and I used to live on, I don't know if I'm gonna say the street name because I always have a hard time. It's Senate Road or Senate Road, I
That's
think.
right. Senate.
Yeah, and it's literally right next to the park where we were running. And so you were talking about how going to these running the bayou brings you so many nice memories. Man,
Yes.
that run was full of nostalgia for me because
Yes.
when I moved to Houston that first time in 2018, I was not in the best shape. I was I wouldn't say overweight, but I was definitely not in the optimal shape where someone at the age of, I think I was like maybe 38, 37. Um, and I decided to go on my first run in that little park that we were in,
Oh,
that
cool.
trail. And when I went through it and then being able to run very efficiently now, because for now I've had several years of practice. It was such a big kind of like moment of gratitude, a moment of
Yes.
happiness, because I remember when I tried doing that one run when I was living there, I think I might have run like maybe 2 miles, and then I walked the rest back home,
Oh,
you know.
wow.
And now that day I ran, I think I ran like 10 miles. So
Mm,
in was such a great moment, man. Such
yeah.
a memorable moment to be there and to finally be able to see the Colosseum Academy and meet all the people that I saw. And it's so awesome over there. I really do enjoy it a lot, man.
Yeah, they're definitely a great group, and there's a lot of fresh ideas. They're very, to me, very current with a lot of their ideas too. So I'll share something fun with.
Hmm.
So the main guy of the HCR is the owner of the Coliseum Academy,
Okay.
and I had known him from the running community in and out. We would
Yeah.
kind of, I'd see him here and there and say hello. And after he ran his first marathon, I say, hey, I want to encourage you to come over to the ultra scene. And I would always kind of say, hey, whenever you're ready, let's go run a 50K. It's,
Yeah.
once again, just like I'm telling you, I think the 50Ks really are help you a lot in the marathon.
Yeah.
But a couple of years went by, and I'd say, hey, still looking to run that, 50K with you. And so once I met Andres, the
Yeah.
guy with HCA, I said, okay, JJ, which is this gentleman's name. I was like,
Hmm.
I'm bringing the run to you now, since now I know where you guys are at. I see where, and so we came up with a beautiful idea to make a what we call the Track 40 event.
Okay.
And the
Yeah.
Track 40 is hosted every May, or
Okay.
in that beginning of the summer months. And it was created to get JJ to run his first 40 miles. And so what that is also done in the same time as get him to that ultra distance, it's really helped the community
Yeah.
to sit in an uncomfortable position. We give runners 6 hours of running time and say, just go out there and just whatever your cup of tea is today. And the first year, I think we had maybe 30 people, and then to see it grow almost to double to 80 plus people last
Wow.
year. And uh, so once again, just really bringing the community together and
Yeah.
just kind of making hard stuff feel easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's been very receptive of this HCR team,
Yeah.
along with, of course, CJ
Yeah.
being one of the big guys.
It's crazy because I've seen that. I seen the 40 thing, and I always had a curiosity, and I always my ADHD kicks in, and I always forget to ask CJ about that, so but now I know what it is. Maybe since I'm
Yep.
getting by May I'm already starting to train for Habanero. Maybe I'll stop by and join the
Please do.
that thing because um I think it would be good training for sure.
Yep.
And I love it over there. I love that area where you guys are at. So give me a reason to go over there then for
That's
sure. And
right.
you mentioned JJ. JJ is a cool dude. I met him. I met him
Yes.
at my friend Paco's birthday. He had his birthday at I forget the place where it was. It was on that side of town where you guys are at. And I met him there. I met his wife, which we're both from Guadalajara, so that we had something in common.
Right.
And he's such a easygoing guy,
Yes.
And mind you, I've only really seen him maybe up to the day that I was telling you that I went to y'all's Colosseum. I probably had only seen him once, maybe twice, maybe twice.
Mhm.
And when I was there after the race with the dog and everything, he came up to me. He's like, "Hey, Roberto, how you doing?" And like I wasn't even expecting him to remember my name, to be
Very
honest.
cool.
When you see
Yep.
someone maybe once, maybe twice, I mean, it takes me like maybe 10 times to see someone and remember their name, you know? Christian's a perfect example. I was calling him Christopher for the longest time.
That's right. Yeah, he has about three aliases. So,
Yeah, yeah. So, and he wouldn't say anything. I don't think he
yep,
either did not hear me or he felt bad to say, "Hey, that's not
yep,
my name."
that's
So
right.
when I met JJ, very nice guy, and just the fact that he remembered me, I even told my fiance, "Man, like this dude actually still remembers me. That's pretty cool." And I mean, I saw him at Habanero. He was flying through the
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
He was just at it, dude. And another perfect reason that I wanted to do it. It was amazing to see him do that. And I knew he was really good in road racing. I did not know that he was in ultra, but now if we put two and two together, you're probably the reason why he got into ultra running.
I'm just an instigator, really, is all we've been doing, just instigating. And it's interesting because ever since that,
Yeah,
um, it's really catapult. Like I said, not only our running community, but just everybody that wants to challenge themselves. It's really
yeah,
kind of allowed it to be a comfortable environment.
yeah.
So it's a in all distances. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
that 40. 40 is just that big picture. So that
Mm-hmm.
way, if you hit half of it this year and maybe aim for a little more next year,
Yeah.
that's exactly what it's about. But it's
That's
really
awesome.
just
That's
in the
awesome. And
moment.
and 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 it gives that person a goal, like you said, maybe you hit 20 this year or last year, this year, upcoming year, you hit, 25 or 30 or something like that. It gives you something to look forward to, you know.
That's right.
So yeah, I definitely hopefully by then I'll be already hitting bigger and double digits and try to go for the 40. That would be amazing if I can. That means that now I'm ready for a 50 miler if I can do 40. But it's definitely I'm definitely gonna pick your brain now that I know that you're the ultra guru over here.
Definitely.
To keep get some ideas,
Yeah.
to see how I can improve and whatnot. But
Yeah.
you know, one thing I wanted to ask you is how how many ultras have you actually ran? Like if I don't know if you remember, but if how many ultras have you actually done?
So that's a fun question because
Mm-hmm.
as I was going from trying to sign up to a Chevron, and then eventually starting to dabble into the ultras. I was, jumping back and forth. But
Mm-hmm.
as far as ultras, I'm really proud of my training ultras. Me talking about this trailway system,
Yeah.
I really love training on that. And like
Mm-hmm.
I said earlier, I used to run from where I used to live
Mm-hmm.
into downtown, which was 12 miles.
Mm-hmm.
But as my rabbit hole got bigger and bigger, I like to do ultras in just my training. So I would take and run from now Tomball, and I'll run into Houston and then to Southwest, which is about 100K.
Okay.
So I do those on my like for fun. So if I count all of those just for funds, I would have a really nice stat sheet. But the races and so forth, I want to say I have at least a good 10 solid
Okay.
races of ultras. Um, my first 100 miler being the Rocky Raccoon
Mm-hmm.
back in 2022.
Okay.
I was able to run that one being the first one. And with all the speed that I had been working, I was able to run that one in 16 hours on
Wow.
my very first one.
Wow.
So just blessed with the speed uh, to be able to somehow, but I did a lot of training in
Yeah.
Huntsville leading up to it and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Um,
That's awesome. Have you ever done more than 100 miles, like the 200s or stuff like that?
no, so the furthest that I've ran is 170.
Okay.
I've run the Snowdrop 55 hours
Yeah.
2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I was able to run 170 miles
Almost
off of
there.
that one.
Almost there, man.
Yeah, so I will say on that one, it was the first time going over 150 miles, and I love sleeping. I will say that I don't mind. I can do without it, but I slept for 9 hours of that 55 hours.
Okay.
So reaching 170 miles, I was moving pretty fast. I think I
Yeah.
was going like a 9:45 pace
Wow.
for that whole 170. I think it was right
Wow.
under 10 minutes pace. So
That's
I
awesome.
got tired in some of the pockets where I got tired. I slept longer than I needed to,
Mm-hmm.
but I was still able to collect 170
That's
uh,
crazy. That's
with
awesome.
the distance, but
Good for you.
nothing like 200 milers yet. I'm hoping that that'll be hopefully starting, if not by the middle or the end of the year. I definitely want
Nice.
to start capitalizing on some 200-mile races
Nice, nice,
and
nice.
see what, if once again, see if I'm any good at it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure,
Uh,
for sure. And how many times have you run a Chevron so far?
so this year was my fifth year
Nice.
running the Chevron. I was uh, with most of the running and training leading up to my third and fourth Chevron.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was able to qualify for the Houston Elite team in 2021. I
Oh,
ran
wow.
the Houston Half Marathon in one
Mm-hmm.
hour and 15 minutes, which
Wow.
was the qualifying standard for the Houston Elite. And
Okay.
just like Boston, I was like, what is Houston Elite? I promise you, a friend of mine named Paco told me, hey, by the way, you qualified for Houston Elite. And I didn't even know that that existed. So once
Wow.
again, I got shoot into this Chevron marathon sitting next to the top elite Kenyans. And I'm just
Oh,
like, what am I
wow.
doing here? I just didn't know about it. I was able to qualify for it. And so it's for 2 years back to back.
Oh,
I
wow.
made those qualifying times.
How
Um,
awesome is that, man? That's
you know,
crazy.
I'm a very simple kind of guy. I'm really not not very extravagant, and that's why when I shared about my IG, even HCA's teaching me and instructing me on how I need to be a little more active in sharing some of the accomplishments
I
and
mean,
stuff
you
like
have
that.
so many accolades, man. I would throw in the basket for you to put all that stuff up, man. And if there's any way I can help you, let me know. I will definitely love to help you in putting spread out that knowledge that you have, man. Because
Yeah,
now that we live in an era that everything is kind of digital and kind of, social media, you definitely have to take advantage of that,
yeah,
because uh, you're doing great in helping the Houston Colosseum, but imagine how much you can help out
yeah.
more people, not just Houston Coliseum, So I definitely think you should do that. If you need any pointers, just like how you're going to give me pointers for the Ultra,
That's
I will
right.
do the same. We can
Yep, yep.
switch and trade. stuff that way. That will be our bargain, the way we're gonna do
There
it.
you
But
go.
definitely, dude, definitely reach out to me and let me know how I can help get all that knowledge out of that brain of yours and put it in our
Yes.
social media and get people more motivated to do these things. But uh, Ramon, don't want to take too much of your time. We're already over an hour. So sorry. This is a part of the section of the podcast. It's a tradition since season one. We have episode 21 that had a question for you. So we'll go ahead and give the guest some time so you can answer the question, and then you'll come back and give us your answer. Okay.
Okay.
Alrighty.
When times are tough, what is your favorite mantra to say to yourself to keep yourself going?
Yeah. So my mantra is I always like to reminisce when I'm a kid and I used to run around the high school asphalt track and in my
Mm-hmm.
elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to hear the words boy blue, because nobody can say Ramon. They used to they had a hard time saying Ramon. And
Yeah.
I used to always hear boy blue. So in my head, I always like
Mm-hmm.
to reminisce of just that sound and those echoes back. And it just kind of brings me back to those uh, especially when I'm feeling low and yeah, that part of my life, it just really captured in my memory. And it's in dark places, it really kind of brings me out of it. Just that boy blue is what I hear, and a lot of the times I can just kind of get out of my funk
Yeah.
and just kind of weather that storm.
That's awesome. It's funny, and well, not funny, but it's crazy how, something like that, could totally change how you feel about your race or the
Yeah,
perspective of it. Boy Blue, two words,
yeah,
which most people would be like, what? What is
yeah,
that? And but for you, it could have such a big meaning, So that's
yeah,
that's awesome, dude. That's very awesome. I was telling you earlier, my mantras are, um, I have a sick brother. He was going through some, health issues. Um, and so I always remind myself, run for the people that can't run. You have all your abilities. Don't take it for granted. You're here, you're now, you know, um, you're meant to do hard things. You know,
yeah,
you've trained your butt off to be here. Now do what you've been doing for the
yeah,
past 18 weeks. So those are my mantras. I think about my daughter. I think about my parents, how proud I want to make them by doing these things, challenging myself in different ways. And so my mantra is always, those things. Or sometimes when, I'm pretty much feeling like gassed out, I cuss myself out. I'm not going to say the words, but you can imagine the type of words that might be coming out, just to get that fire burning, but, it's, I think I said it on the last episode about the mantras. Um, I never thought they would do anything to you. And up to this last marathon that I did, um, I finally saw how powerful your words are, when you need them,
yeah.
and just so you know, I this was my seventh marathon. The
Mhm.
first six marathons, I've always cramped out somewhere in the later part stages of the marathon. And I would try different things, try to figure it out. And it was getting better. I'm not going to say it wasn't, because in Berlin, I cramped out at mile 24. So we're talking about only two more miles left versus the one before, I cramped out like around mile 19. So it's such a big you know bad time having to go from 19 to 26 with cramps and stuff like that. But I was still very frustrated because I still could not get a full marathon where I could don't cramp. And so come this marathon that we just ran, 2 weeks ago, um, I went from mile 1 to 26 cramp free.
Perfect. Good for
Perfect,
you.
and it was not a fast marathon. It wasn't my fastest, it wasn't my slowest, but I didn't even care about time. I finally conquered the biggest thing that's always kept me from being being better at the marathon, which was cramping. And
Yeah.
I mean, I I cried when I saw my fiance. I hugged her and I cried because it was such a big relief, man.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
big relief to finally say, okay, I can finally now
Yeah.
move to other aspects in my running that I need to get better at.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing feeling, man. It's crazy. So mantra,
Yeah.
I think mantra had a lot to do with it. Obviously, what I did to not cramp, all the stuff that I ate, all the stuff that pre-race, post-race, you know but mantras are very powerful, and now
Yeah.
I finally understand what it is, so that's awesome that that you use that as something such a great memory for you. And it keeps you fueled up in a way, right?
Yeah. It makes you feel like you have that fire. That's
Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
desire, that kid desire.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I already said it earlier. I don't want to take too much of your time. So now we're at a part of the end of the podcast where you get to ask a question for our next episode, which you're 22. So if my math is correct, it would be 23. Do you have a question for our guests?
Yeah. So my question is, what is your first go-to after a race, whether a drink or something to eat? Just curious to know, what is that one thing that you think about when you're 10 miles left to go, whether it's a 26 miler, 50 miler, or a 100 miler?
And what goes through Ramon's mind when he's running? He's about to hit 170 miles. What does Ramon want?
Dr. Pepper. I love Dr. Pepper, and I will definitely aim towards a Dr. Pepper when I'm done. Just love the
Nice,
taste of it.
nice. Especially after running so much, man. Like,
Yes, that's right. Any distance.
I crave pancakes.
Nah, that's right. That's good. That's a good one.
I crave pancakes. I crave pizza, but pancakes for some reason the sweet is what I want. I don't maybe it's all the sugar and
Yeah.
all the salt. I don't know, but it's definitely pancakes. And
Reward. You
yeah,
should
and
reward
my
yourself.
my daughter's so good at when I'm in training mode. She usually will make me pancakes on Sundays, and
No,
and
that's
they're
cool.
ready to go when I get home. So
That's cool.
she already knows me too well, man. But Ramon, any races you got coming in the near future? What's on Ramon's agenda?
So I got a couple smaller races. So we
Mm-hmm.
have Broken Arrow that'll be in Lake Tahoe this year. That's probably going to
Okay.
be out of state races.
Mm-hmm.
But look for me on hopefully my social media. I think I'm going to start doing my crazy training. I'm
Mm-hmm.
the crazy training guy. I just love doing just long distances in my training. So I'm planning on running 100 miles
Mm-hmm.
from one part of Houston and mapping it over to the other side at some point to finish.
Okay.
So I'll probably do a couple of those throughout the year. Maybe some fast races, but hadn't really made my mind 100% yet. I
Okay.
just really love the aspect of training. I really do.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I think that's one thing me and you have in common. Like I mentioned earlier, I like putting the time. To
Yeah,
me, that is, you know, the biggest part, the foundation to everything I do. You gotta love that part to be able to love the end game, right? When you go for the race. And so for me, just like you said, you have to like to be outdoors. You have to be liking to do that. To me, is the training. You have to enjoy all the training, all the, early morning wake ups or, late night runs, whatever your plan requires you to do, and enjoy it and love it. So yeah, I'm the same way, man. And let me know about that 100 miler. Maybe I won't run the whole 100 miles with you, but maybe we can figure out where I can find you and maybe throw in a couple miles with you and help you in your
excellent.
adventure, man. I
That's
definitely would
always
love to
fun.
do that for sure, for
Yes,
sure. And
definitely.
I'll bring my
It's
camera, man. I'll bring my camera. We'll get some footage of you. I'll make you a nice little video. All you got to do is just
just
post it.
run.
Just post it,
Okay,
and
got it.
and
That's
and
right.
I'll help you with the harder part, which is just getting the film done, edited,
Yeah.
and put some words, whatever you want to put on the description, and put it up in social media. Okay. I won't
Yes.
even charge
Appreciate
you,
it.
man.
Thank
I
you.
won't charge you at all.
That's fine. Well, I'll pay you with pacing. Whenever
Okay.
you start getting into those higher distances, you can count on me too. I will make sure that I'll be able to share some of the knowledge in those pace miles.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And you know what? I just remember one more thing before I let you go. You mentioned something about going to Colosseum for the first time, and it said that you thought it involved a hamburger. Did you ever get that hamburger?
I have not gotten my hamburger yet.
So who do we
Yeah,
need to talk about this?
we need to figure out how we're going to get this hamburger. Yes,
Is
a
this
double
JJ that was
cheeseburger.
supposed to give you the hamburger, or
No,
Andres?
it was really Andres. Andres
Okay,
is the one that owes me the hamburger, so
okay.
we'll go and throw him out there.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
I'm I'm saying it right now on this podcast. Andres, now interest, two burgers for you and for me. So he owes us a burger each, okay?
Too funny. I'll make sure he knows. Yes,
Alrighty, Ramon, I
yes.
appreciate it. I appreciate your time. I love your story. I love everything you've done. But at this point, we're at the end. Do you have
Yes.
any words, anything encouraging words for brand new future ultra marathoner here that's gonna do his 50K at Habanero?
I'm going to always say that you're a student of the sport, no matter what distance you go,
Mm-hmm.
and you will get the study that you do. You'll get those results, but just put the time in.
Okay.
I'm a big believer in putting the proper time in, and
Mm-hmm.
look at it in a bird's eye view,
Mm-hmm.
never in a really close
Okay.
zoomed. You have to really analyze it a little bit different, so that way you're not hard on yourself whenever maybe something doesn't go right in your training or a
Mm-hmm.
race. But maybe in a 2 year, 3 year perspective,
Mm-hmm.
when things look like everything's kind of flowing, you can evaluate yourself that way. So
Awesome,
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ramon. Thank you very much again.
Yep.
I appreciate your time and your dedication to the sport, and I hope we can connect in person very soon, man. Okay?
Yes, definitely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no
Nice
problem.
talking.
Yep. So good night, man.
Good night too. Bye.
Bye bye.